Beyond Meat is making its way to Starbucks now. The coffee giant announced today that it will add a Beyond Meat cheddar and egg sandwich to more than 1,400 Canadian stores beginning March 3rd. The plant-based meat company expected to report its latest quarterly earnings on Thursday after the bell. Here to break down the details is CFRA analyst Arun Sundaram. Thank you so much for joining us, Arun. So how big of a deal is this for Beyond Meat? We've heard these various other chains partnering either with Beyond or mostly also with its competitor, Impossible. That's its main competitor, I guess. So how significant is this particular win for it?
Yeah, I mean, this news is certainly a positive for Beyond Meat and really the entire plant-based category if you look at it. But it's important to note that this partnership with Starbucks is not that surprising. You know, Starbucks had previously stated that it was going to introduce more plant-based products this year. And, you know, given the recent success you saw with Beyond's partnership with Dunkin', it only makes sense that Starbucks launches a competing product. As you know, late last year, Dunkin' expanded its Beyond sausage sandwich to all of its U.S. stores. But again, it's important to note that this partnership with Starbucks is still a limited partnership. We've seen these so-called pilot programs not work out for Beyond Meat in the past. One example is Tim Hortons, where just last month, Tim Hortons pulled all of its Beyond Meat products out of its stores in Canada. But we think things could be different for Starbucks. We think they can have a lot more success with Starbucks.
So there's a lot of craze for imitation meat or fake meat, depending how you want to describe it. But you also warn your clients that this is a risky, stock, these stocks in general, to look at these imitation meats. Why is that, especially if we go into an economic slowdown?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because, as you know, these alternative meat products, their price point is at a premium to traditional meat products. And for the most part, these products are competing on the shelves directly next to the refrigerated traditional meat products. So we think if there is an economic downturn in the near future, consumers will have less discretionary income, meaning these alternative meat products could be more significantly impacted in terms of consumption trends than traditional meat products.
Arun, talk to us about the supply chain issues that these companies have had. Pea protein apparently is not in huge supply, and that has created some bottlenecks for some of these companies that make this stuff. Are we going to hear Beyond talk about that when it reports earnings? Is that going to be something that could put a cap on some of its growth?
Yeah, exactly. So as you may know, in the past, Beyond Meat had some supply issues, had some trouble meeting customer demand, customer orders, but they've since fixed those issues. Yep. And now they're really focused on adding capacity so they can avoid these issues in the future. I think tomorrow, one of the big focus points is going to be capacity constraints and how much additional capacity that they're going to bring in. That's something that they typically talk about on a quarterly basis. I think last quarter, they mentioned that they significantly increased capacity. We estimate that Beyond has the capacity currently to generate about $1 billion, a little bit of $1 billion in sales. And this year, we're projecting just a little under $300 million in sales. So we still think there's some capacity room, but that's something that is going to need to be addressed going into the future as more of these partnerships expand.
Hi, Arun. Mattie Duppler here. So supply chains have been all the rage right now because of the trade tensions that the United States has been suffering, mostly with China, but with other trading partners as well. So is Beyond mostly exposed to those trade tensions? Is Impossible? Is that something that we're going to see show up when we're talking about how much room there is for growth for these companies?
Yeah. So, I mean, so both Beyond and Impossible Foods has talked about expanding into the Asia market, specifically China, maybe late this year, early next year. But more than a supply issue, we think that the market right now for alternative meat is very attractive in China and Asia. As you know, from this coronavirus, there's a lot of negative sentiment right now in the wet meat market in China. So meaning that there could be a little bit more demand for these alternative protein products that don't necessarily have the same kind of health concerns that you see with some of the fresh meat right now.
Arun Sundaram of CFRA, thank you. Appreciate it.